We are just 45 minutes away from the end of the 22nd anniversary of the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks. And what have we learned the 22 years after these events? Not much, I will say. Um, and that's because we're not getting any type of cooperation from the federal government, the intelligence services, the legacy media, and of course, the problem of disinformation that's awash over the internet. Now, that may seem like a lot to you. You may want to throw up your hands and say, the hell with all this. I got better things to do. Well, with a crime as egregious as September 11th, 2001, I think that it is poorly misrepresented and in dire need of new blood, fresh faces, and a willingness to act responsibly and uphold moral judicial law for the crimes of this terrorist incident. What are those crimes? Well, I think in order to understand what those crimes are and to find out who's responsible for these crimes, judicially or morally, we have to go to pre intelligence. That means backwards. And this is where we'll find out some of the names of the people who were involved in monitoring these men who hijacked these planes and crashed them into the World Trade Center, Pentagon, and into a field in Shanksville. And over time, we've had a number of people from the very movement who are supposed to be the ones who challenge the federal government and the intelligence services to begin with, who are actually helping them in the cover up unwittingly. And that is the 9/11 Truth Movement. And it's not a condemnation of the whole movement, but there are a percentage of these people that are actually proposing false theories. And these false theories help to cover up the actual conspiracies involved with 9/11. And there are so many, but the public doesn't know about them. And a lot of these conspiracies are based in the years 2000 and 2001. I've gone over these conspiracies ad nauseum. Some of you who knew me for a long time, like Fire Pixie, are probably sick and tired of the repetitive really sounding grouse of finding out who's responsible for withholding information, for not sharing information, and for what reasons and why. And what information was there? There's a lot regarding this incident. When you have an operation like 9/11, which didn't come out of the blue, the to before Al Qaeda was even an organization, you had secular Arab fundamentalist groups like Hezbollah, for example, that would hijack planes in the mid 1980s and the early 1980s. But the difference was those weren't martyrdom operations. In other words, they didn't want to kill everybody on board. What they did was they just hijacked the plane, hijacked the crew, made them fly the plane to a certain location, and then have their demands met when they landed on the ground. Well, the evolution of terrorism began with the advent of Arab fundamentalist groups, which was a direct response to U.S. foreign policy. Arab fundamentalism didn't just come out of nowhere, not because they hate our freedoms or that our women can vote or what type of music we listen to. If you listen to people like Osama bin Laden or Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, the founder of the Islamic State, Dr. Ayman al-Zawahiri, of the leader of the Egyptian Islamic Jihad, former emir of Al-Qaeda, well, they'll tell you that their actions, their terrorist operations are in direct result of our foreign policy with Israel. Now, the State Department, they'll lie to you. So will the media. They'll basically say, no, it's because they're Muslims and they hate you. This way, you're always in a perpetual state of conflict, not realizing that they're helping to cover up the real reason. The real reason is our foreign policy. Because, heaven forbid, the public starts paying attention. It says, what's wrong with our foreign policy? Can we correct it so this problem wouldn't last anymore or exist? Hey, maybe there is a problem with our foreign policy. We need to correct it. Well, they don't want that. So they'll keep lying. Terrorists up. And like 3.5 hour discussion with Sean Russell of Beyond Ground Zero the other day, which is uploaded on YouTube and it's also like a podcast episode. It was fantastic. We talked about this, but to just give you a short rundown, you got to tell us that we're closely created a virtual station called the Bin Laden Issue Station, which was codenamed Alex Station, which had all the intelligence services together sharing information, or that they thought they were, honestly. In fact, they weren't. But the idea was to share enough information so they could stop Bin Laden and Al Qaeda from operating in a nefarious manner worldwide. This should have worked. You had a number of agencies working together: the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, heck, even the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is the Pentagon's intelligence arm, had their own operation called Able Data, metadata collection operation that collected public information and private information, classified information about terrorist organizations inside the United States, in which they uncovered Mohammed Atta and Omar Abdul Rahman, the blind sheikh, who was supposed to be responsible for masterminding the landmarks plot and also an involvement found out about the operating uh, in tandem, listening to phone calls. Of Bin Laden all around the world. And so you had we have the chance. And it's something that we don't have. Hopefully that works. And then when you have the intelligence services not sharing information for whatever reason, we have a problem. Is that you have a criminal organization that is operating openly, not in secret, openly, in response to U.S. foreign policy, declaring this in fatwas and in media interviews that bin Laden did in the mid 1990s. So you had a number of operations happening in the mid 90s. A brewing problem happens in the year 2000 in which the NSA heard about a phone call and a meeting in Malaysia in which that was transmitted to the CIA and the FBI. However, the problem begins with the CIA. Two men, Khalid al-Mihdhar and Awaf al-Hazmi, who went to this meeting in Malaysia of al-Qaeda uh, hierarchy, presumably to talk about terrorist operations like the USS Cole bombing and the 9/11 attacks, or as they were called, the planes operation. Now, what is the role of all intelligence services? It's to collect information before, presumably, the operation even happens. In order to do what? Stop the operation from even happening in the first place. That is the essence of all intelligence services, foreign, domestic, just like the police. You know, you get a phone call from a resident who overhears a criminal talking about something he's going to do. Call the police. You share that information. You go and arrest that person, or you begin an operation monitoring that person. And when he's caught doing the operation in the process, you arrest him. And the problem was that the NSA wasn't sharing all their information with the CIA. The CIA wasn't sharing all their information with the FBI or even the State Department for that matter. The CIA wouldn't work with the DIA on their operation because they said that it would steal our thunder. A lot of pettiness with these intelligence services. Lives are at stake, don't you agree? So you have people like Director George Tenet, the DCI of CIA. You have the director of the NSA, Michael Hayden. You have Robert Mueller and Louis Freeh, the FBI directors. You have the DIA's leadership at the Pentagon, Southern Operations Command, leadership under the able danger like Peter Shoemaker or Hugh Shelton. Now, according to the able danger team, they amassed 3.5 terabytes of information about Muhammad Atta and the Hamburg cell while they were inside the United States, as well as Omar Abdul Rahman's cell. The CIA had tons of information about Al Qaeda. The NSA had the most because, like I said in other videos, they were listening to the phone calls of bin Laden and Al Qaeda and the house in Yemen, which was the Al Qaeda Global Communications Hub. And they were listening to those phone calls every day. And like I said, with that discussion I had with Sean, the conspiracy by the State Department was and the intelligence services that they didn't have enough information, not enough manpower. Well, the real conspiracy was they had enough information. Now we know this through the public record. It's not a conspiracy anymore. We know it to be true. Heck, even the former senior executive of the NSA, Thomas Drake, the most important whistleblower of our lifetime since Daniel Ellsberg, even came out and said that the NSA had so much information that they could have stopped 9/11 altogether. They just didn't know what they had. That's what the NSA says. Um, on top of this, you have Saudi intelligence monitoring Khalid al-Mihdhar and al-Wahhabi when they came to the United States. The CIA knew this. The NSA knew this. The Saudis knew this. But the FBI didn't, and neither did the State Department. Now, on the other hand, Israeli intelligence, the largest foreign intelligence service ring in the world at the time, ever on U.S. soil. We know this because we have the DEA report and then the Gerald Shea memorandum, which is basically the DEA report as well as reports of other Israelis using moving front companies in New Jersey, in Florida, and the Arch Student Ring that was operating all throughout the Southwest and Northeast, monitoring not just the members of the planes operation, all of them, but the FBI and the DEA and other government surveillance facilities. Saudis and the Israelis are allegedly our allies, yet they're committing secret black operations on our soil without ever informing or sharing the intelligence with us. Now, what are the odds that the Israelis and Saudis had specific information regarding the 9/11 attacks? Could it have been shared? Well, they're on the ground. They're living next door to these people. Saudi intelligence was basically hand over fist giving logistical and financial support to Khalid al-Mihdhar and Wahhabi. Two of them, both of those people, were known Al Qaeda operatives. Known. The Hamburg cell, led by Mohammed Atta, Mohammed Ashay, Ziad Jarrah, were closely monitored by the Israelis. Living next door to them in Florida, Hollywood, Florida, Plantation, Florida, cities. What information do you think they collected on these people? And we're talking about, several months before the attacks even happened. What information did the Saudis have and that the Israelis had? Intimate knowledge, maybe. We don't know. But they didn't share it with the American intelligence services or the State Department. Ask yourself why. Even the NSA and the CIA lied at the 9/11 Commission of the Joint House Inquiry. George Tenet, the director of Central Intelligence, even committed perjury. One such example is that the cable, a Central Intelligence report, as it's called, came in about Khalid al-Mihdhar and Wahhabi coming from an Al Qaeda level summit meeting in Malaysia to the United States. And oh, by the way, these two guys, known Al Qaeda operatives, have dual U.S. visas. What did the CIA do with this information? They hoarded it. FBI found out because they were working at Alex Station, tried to warn headquarters, but they had to get CIA approval and they were rejected. Why? Well, it finds out later through the Canestrell files and Operation Encore file, the FBI operation, was that the CIA was acting with the Saudi intelligence arm, the General Intelligence Directorate, or Mahabet in Arabic. They were running a black covert operation in monitoring Khalid al-Mihdhar and Wahhabi. They didn't tell the Bush administration. They didn't tell the Department of Justice this. But we know it to be true because of the Canestrell document. Now, all of this I told you in this room, you already know. Now, here's the real horror. The public doesn't. Because the media doesn't report it honestly. The government covers it up. And the 9/11 Truth Movement doesn't believe in hijackers, so they propose false theories. Now, people like myself and you people in the room, you're trying to spread the word. Hey, listen, we got people's names. We got these people. We can hold these people accountable. But we're very few and far between. But the fight is the right fight, and keep on fighting for the truth. Now, you can basically go the pessimistic route, like I usually do, and say, we'll never get justice, real justice anyway. What are the odds of George Tenet sitting on a trial seat for his role in not allowing information to be shared, which led to the attacks, or perjury, which is probably he can't be prosecuted for? But let's just pretend. It doesn't matter if Tenet is being prosecuted. What matters is your fight to hold these people responsible. You're not doing it for yourselves. You're doing it because it's the right thing to do. It's the moral thing to do, to hold people accountable for their crimes or their misdeeds so that this wouldn't happen again. That's how you have a productive society. Because if we're a society without law, then we're a society of anarchists and criminals where laws don't apply and one's personal agenda becomes the norm. Your pain, my gain. Is that a world you want for your children or for yourself? And I think if we're going to get anywhere regarding investigating 9/11 honestly, we have to look at pre-intelligence because that's where the names are. That's where the crimes of not sharing information are, which could have stopped the 9/11 attacks. That's where maybe complicity is. Did we assist some of these hijackers? Not out of the realms of possibility. So when we're faced with a very tough situation of going up against a monolith of the government or the apparatus of news media or being saturated with disinformation, you throw up your hands and you want to quit. I can understand that. Heck, I wanted to quit so many times, but then I listened to the phone call of Kevin Cosgrove, who worked for Aon Corporation on the 105th floor of the South Tower. And I hear the pain in the voices of people like Elizabeth Miller, who lost their father in the North Tower of the World Trade Center, or Brett Eagleson, who lost his father in the North Tower of the World Trade Center, the countless other widows and sons and daughters of the parents that they'd lost, or those who were tortured for being nothing more than an Arab or a Muslim or an Afghan or an Algerian or a Yemeni with no ties to terrorism by our intelligence services authorized by our federal government. There's a lot to answer for here. And I know I sound like a broken record, but we need more voices to speak out. And you may be one of those people that's like, well, I don't have much faith in myself. Well, I don't like the way I look or don't like the way I sound. Well, that's how I was. I don't like my accent much. I have a very deep, heavy New York accent. But it's not about how you sound or how you look. It's about what's up in here and here. right? Your mind and your heart. Because if you're acting in good faith as a dutiful, responsible researcher and reputable investigator and only interested in the truth, no matter what, no matter where it leads to, put your biases aside. The main underlying point is to hold bad people accountable for their crimes and misdeeds. That's the only thing that counts. And with each passing year from the 9/11 attacks of 2001, we get that much further away from holding these people accountable. It's not late yet. Some of these people are still alive. We could still one day get that big platform and talk about the Gerald Shea memo, talk about the CIA and NSA monitoring Bin Laden satellite phones, and let's release those transcripts. It's not too late to talk about the Canistrail document that now proves that the CIA was running a covert, illegal operation with a foreign intelligence service. It's not too late. Not yet. And don't lose sight of the fact and don't lose hope. The truth is a very lonely island. Sometimes you're all alone on it. And I don't claim to have much of the truth or some of the truth, maybe a little bit. I'm not an expert or a teacher or an authority figure shooting out of my own bedroom. I'm a regular person just like you that takes a great invested interest in this subject and wants to see people held accountable because they were real victims here. 2,996 people were murdered, and many millions more in the after effects, in the wars perpetrated in our name by the federal government and the military industrial complex, funded by the fossil fuel industry, the banking industry, and other nefarious contexts, foreign policy advisors, the Israeli Public Affairs Committee. We have to criticize and criticize them openly and honestly. And I hope one day you'll join me in that fight. And as long as I'm alive, I will always report earnestly, honestly, regarding this event as well as world events currently happening because I want the public to be properly informed because that's how you build a real movement, a movement of people informed and cognitive in their own rational powers to take the next step and act in a responsible manner and hold these people accountable who allowed these attacks to happen and who probably have facilitated in these attacks as well. And so, with the nearing of the 22nd anniversary at end, it doesn't have to end here because the cries and the pleas of the victims are still ongoing and they're still looking for justice. I was told once by a person I know that my channel doesn't mean anything. I'm wasting my time. Well, I very well might be. But you tell that to the thousands of victims and families and loved ones, those who were murdered at the World Trade Center, Pentagon, and Shanksville. You tell them that it's 20 years fast. Get over it. Tell it to the Guantanamo detainees who we tortured mercilessly. 15 years, 16 years, locked up without a single charge, raped, physically, mentally, destroyed. You tell them that's 22 years past. It doesn't matter anymore. Move on. Well, I would say to you that if I'm wasting my time, you tell them they're wasting theirs because that's who I'm doing it for. I'm not doing it for myself. I'm doing it for them because I got to believe that. And I got to believe that we're doing the right thing by asking for justice. Thank you all very much for coming in tonight. Don't give up the fight and believe in yourself and believe that one day we can receive justice. Have a good night, everybody.